Hi everyone, my name is Hussain and I will be teaching you NEET biology in this series. We will cover every chapter concept wise, and today our first chapter is the living world. Okay, which is the first chapter in 11th standard NCERT textbook. है ना? So in this chapter there are three concepts, out of which the first concept is what we're going to see today. Okay, which is properties of living organisms. Okay, under this we will study the important properties of living organisms. There are several, okay, which are present in all the living organisms, and classify them as the defining or non-defining properties. Okay, but before we go on to the properties itself, let us know a few general terms regarding this chapter. Okay, out of which the first one is defining and non-defining properties. A defining property is that property which is present in all the members of a particular group. Okay, all the members of a particular group without any exceptions. Such a property is called a defining property. A property becomes non-defining when there are exceptions. Okay, so if a particular property is present in all the members of the group except one or two, then that property becomes a non-defining property because it does not define the entire group but only a part of the group. Okay, so hence the property becomes a non-defining property. Okay. Besides that, if that property is present in members of other groups, okay, if we are discussing, let us say that we are discussing two or three groups. Okay, here we will be discussing two groups, which is living organisms and non-living organisms. Okay, so if a property we are in discussion is present in the living organisms also and non-living organisms also, then that property is not called as defining property. It is called as non-defining property. Okay. So yes, so that is what is defining properties and non-defining properties. Okay. So next we come to the concept of life. Okay. So what is life? Life is a unique, complex organization of molecules expressing through chemical reactions. Okay, which leads to five of these properties: growth, development, responsiveness, adaptation, and reproduction. Okay. Next is, what is a living organism? A living organism is a self-replicating organism, meaning it does not need somebody else to replicate. A living organism is a self-replicating organism which is ever evolving, which always keeps on evolving, and self-regulating. Okay, it can regulate its own well-being. Okay, and it is interactive with the environment and with the other living organisms. Okay, so a living organism is a self-replicating, evolving, and a self-regulating interactive system capable of responding to external stimulus. The external stimulus can be multiple things, okay, such as light, temperature, heat, and so on. Okay, so coming to the properties themselves, let us first list up the properties, which are growth, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization, and consciousness. Okay, let us start with the first property, which is growth. So, what is growth? It is the increase in the number and mass of cells by cell division. Okay, so in plants, growth is continuous throughout their lifespan, whereas in animals, growth is only up to a certain age. Okay, example, you would have seen that we as humans grow in height up to a certain age only. After that, we do not grow in height. Okay, up to 21, 22, some people grow up to 25, and after that, there's no increase in height. So, however, that does not mean that new cells are not formed every day. New cells are formed with the help of cell division, which only helps to replace the lost cells and does not form new cells altogether. Okay. Okay, so basically growth is an increase in mass and size. Thus, non-living objects also grow. Yes, so if there is a ground, or let us say in our case in India, we have the roads. Okay, so we just keep on building more roads over the roads, over the roads, over the roads, over the roads. So if if you see, if you take a cross section of the road, you will see that there are layers and layers of roads which have been accumulated from past several years. Okay, so such a thing is called as accretion. Okay, accumulation, surface accumulation of materials on a non-living substance is called accretion, and it is considered as growth. Okay, another example is formation of crystals. Okay, it can be termed as accretion. So growth, this makes growth a non-defining property of living organisms because it is not only seen in living organisms but it is also seen in non-living organisms. Okay, so yeah, in living organisms, growth is from the inside. Okay, and this type of growth is called as intrinsic growth or protoplasmic growth. Okay, since it is present inside, it is growing from inside. It is called as intrinsic growth or protoplasmic growth. Whereas there is growth in living organisms, there is growth on the outside as well due to accumulation. Such a growth is called as apoplasmic growth. Okay, it is seen on the cell wall of plants. It is seen in the fibers of a human muscle and all those things. Okay, animal muscle and all those things. Right. So the next property we come to is reproduction. So it is the production of young ones or progeny which have features which are more or less similar to their parents. Okay, they have features from both their parents. Some features from their mom, some features from their dad. Okay, so living organisms can reproduce either sexually or asexually. Okay. Yes. So in the diagram you see that on the left side there are examples of asexual reproduction where you can see that there is budding, there is binary fishing, and there is regeneration and so on. Whereas on the right side you can see that there are formation of gametes in the form of sperm and eggs which fuse to form a zygote, which again undergoes multiple cleavages to form an organism, a living organism. Okay, so that is an example for sexual reproduction, whereas on the left are examples of asexual reproduction. Okay, so now in unicellular organisms such as bacteria, algae, unicellular algae, and unicellular fungi, growth and reproduction are the same because in order to grow, the cell has to break into two. But since it's a unicellular organism, if it breaks into two, it becomes two organisms. Okay, so hence we consider growth and reproduction as same in unicellular organisms, and this is why there is a term given to it. Okay, so this is why in unicellular organisms growth and reproduction are said to be mutually inclusive with each other, meaning if growth is happening, that means reproduction is also happening. Okay, whereas in multicellular organisms growth and reproduction are not mutually inclusive, and they are not mutually exclusive as well. Okay. Okay, so many organisms do not reproduce. Okay, such as we have mules, okay, which is a crossbreed of horse and donkey. They cannot reproduce to further generations. Okay, then we have the worker bees. Worker bees in the beehive cannot reproduce. They are female bees which are helpful only to build the hive and to give nourishment to the queen bee. Okay, so they cannot reproduce themselves. Okay, so they are all sterile. So since there are examples of living organisms which cannot reproduce, reproduction is not a perfect defining property of the living organisms. Yes. Next, coming to the third property, which is metabolism. Okay, so what is metabolism? It is the sum total of all biochemical reactions taking place inside a living system. Okay, so it is a defining property of living organisms. Why? Because it is seen in all the members of the living organism. Okay, all the members of the group of living organisms. Okay, metabolism generally is divided into two basic reactions. Okay, which is anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is fusion of two molecules to form a bigger molecule. Okay, whereas catabolism is breaking down of a molecule into two smaller molecules. Okay, so a fun fact and an important fact is that the relation between metabolism and growth is that mathematically speaking, if anabolism minus catabolism is positive, that means growth is happening. Okay, because there is more constructive reaction taking place, which is anabolism. Okay, but if anabolism minus catabolism is going negative, that means degrowth is happening, meaning that there is more destruction happening in the body than construction. Okay. Yes. So metabolic reactions can also be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free systems. Okay. In labs, basically, such reactions are called in vitro reactions, and they are not living things. So the reactions happening in the lab are not living things, but are living reactions. Example of such a reaction is when you take a starch substance such as bread. Okay, and collect your saliva in a test tube, and then add a piece of bread. You can see that there is digestion of bread happening. Okay, because of the salivary amylase present in our saliva. Okay, so such is an example of in vitro living reaction happening in a what do you call it, cell-free system. Okay, the fourth property is cellular organization. Okay, so all the organisms are made up of at least one cell or more than one cell. Okay, cells organisms which are made up of a single cell are called single cell organisms, and organisms which are made up of more than one cell are called multicellular organisms. Okay. Under single-cellular organism itself, again we divide the organisms into two types, which is a prokaryotic cell and a new eukaryotic cell. Okay, prokaryotic cell itself means it is an older version of the cell. Okay, prokaryon meaning older cell. Okay, or the nucleus is old. Okay, so and eukaryotes true nucleus is present. Okay, so there are two types of cells, and based on this there are prokaryotic cells are always unicellular. Okay, whereas eukaryotic cells can be unicellular as well as multicellular. Okay, so this cellular organization property is a defining feature of all organisms, because for a living organism to be called living, it has to have at least one basic cell. Okay, so hence cellular organization is called as is a defining feature of the living organism. Okay, and then we come to the final property of living organisms, which is consciousness. Okay, so what is consciousness? It is the ability of the organisms to sense their environment and respond to the environmental stimuli. Okay, this environmental stimulus can be light, water, temperature, chemicals, other organisms, and so on. In the pictures on the right, you will see that a human is responding to low temperatures. How is he responding? By shivering. Okay, so when the temperature is low, we normally shiver. Okay, why do we shiver? Is that our body generates heat while shivering, which is shivering is nothing but vibration of the body. Okay, vibration tends to develop heat in our body. Okay, so when the temperatures go low, our body is not able to maintain the temperature, keep up with the low temperature, and hence it generates heat involuntarily without our knowing. Okay, the second picture is a picture of Venus flytrap, which is a plant. Okay, so when a bug comes and sits on the leaf of Venus flytrap, which is visible in the picture, it just closes and captures the bug. Okay, and eats the bug. Okay, and the third picture you see is a plant which is growing towards the light. So since the light is coming towards the from the right side, the plant is bending towards the right side, tending to go towards light, because it needs light to perform photosynthesis. Hence, it goes towards the right. Okay. Yes. So all organisms are aware of their surroundings, and so it is a defining property of living organisms. Okay. This awareness is seen in all the organisms. This response to stimulus can be fast or can be slow. As animals, we respond to stimulus fast. Okay. When you touch a hot pan or a hot vessel, you immediately withdraw your finger. Why do you do that? Is because your response to stimulus is fast. Okay, as compared to plants. Okay, so when a particular plant is not getting enough water, if it's not getting enough sunlight, it does not just stand up and walk to the sunlight or walk to the water. It slowly turns its way of growth towards the water or towards the sunlight, as seen in the third picture in this slide. Henna. Okay, so human being is the only organism to exhibit self-consciousness, meaning awareness of the self, meaning that I am present. For example, I, Hussein, am taking a biology class in the chapter living organism, and this self-consciousness which I'm having is seen only in humans. No other animal, no other organism on earth is capable of this self-consciousness. Okay, as long as we know, as far as we know, we don't know that there might be other organisms which are aware too. There are studies that even dolphins can be self-aware or self-conscious. Okay, but as of now, human being is the only organism to exhibit self-consciousness. Okay, so with this we come to the end of this concept. So recapping the concept, we have five properties which we've discussed, which is growth, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization, and consciousness. Okay. So out of which we have growth and reproduction as non-defining properties of living organism, and metabolism, cellular organization, and consciousness as defining properties of living organism, meaning that it is seen in all the members of the living organisms. Okay. So with this we come to the end of this concept in living world. Thank you and have a nice day.